Hello and welcome back to the She Lives Purposefully podcast. Today I am here with my sweet friend. She is a wife, she is a mama, she's an author, she's the founder of Purpose Doesn't Pause. She does like all the things. Also social media, content creator, influencer. She's been on the podcast before. You have loved her on this show. And we are going to be talking, well, you know what? I'll let her tell you. But first, Hope, welcome to the She Lives Purposefully podcast.
Oh my gosh, Meg, it is always the best getting to talk to you and talk to your audience. I love SLP and yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited. All right, for those who do not know who you are or haven't heard you on the show before, could you tell us just a little bit more about who you are, what you do?
Yeah. All the things. Okay, yeah, so I'm Hope Reagan Harris. I spent, I guess, about 7, 8-ish years in corporate America. And about a year ago, I decided to stay at home with my little toddler, Remy. And we're now expecting a second baby, a baby boy, in August. And yeah, basically after I quit working, the Purposes and Pause movement started, which is crazy to say this, the largest Christian postcard movement in the world. You can get a free postcard. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I am just a very normal girl and I enjoy writing to encourage you. And I write about just the suffering and the hard things I've gone through to try to help someone else out. And I just always hope that it's relatable and real and transparent because my life is very, very normal, I promise. And I live in Arkansas, so
I
even
love
more
it.
normal, small town girl.
Oh my goodness. And two, I feel like just it's so amazing, and you just kind of glossed over it, but how much Purpose Doesn't Pause has grown and so quickly. Like it is
Crazy.
so
Yeah.
amazing and like impressive, but also just like the Lord moving so powerfully in it. Could you talk a little bit more about Purpose Doesn't Pause and just shed
Yeah.
some light on that?
Yeah, no, it was crazy because Meg, I think we were recording. I had Meg kick off my podcast, Purpose Doesn't Pause. And I mean, I literally just thought it was just going to be podcasts. Like, I had written a book called Purpose Doesn't Pause, and I'm like, I just love what that means. That like God's always on time and that He's always moving, even when we feel like life looks slow or looks way different than we expected. And so I remember us recording the first podcast. And then I remember during Remy's nap time, right after I'd quit working, probably 2 months in, really didn't know what I was going to be doing, from a side hustle perspective or just to keep busy because I like working, I like doing stuff. And long story short, I posted a reel asking who wanted Christian encouragement with Dayspring cards, thinking, okay, like 40 people might say yes. I had a much smaller following then, and it went absolutely viral. And so that was actually last April, a year ago, which is
Wow.
nuts. And yeah, as of, I guess wrapping up March, I did like a little report on how many cards had been handed out. We're at 24,850 plus and counting, growing daily. It's reached 55% of the world. Like if you take the amount of cities in the world and divide it by
Wow.
like how many we've reached, over 55% of the world. And I think I've only written like 1,000 of the cards. So we've had like
Wow.
over 2,000 volunteers. I mean, it is truly like Meg said, like I'm sitting here, it's just like this story of like what in the world. And honestly, y'all, I've hardly done anything. Like this is all God. Like I have just been at home watching Remy, trying to keep up with her, and man, has the Lord just like brought His people to move this forward because I have in no way, shape, or form like have the capacity in this season to be doing this.
No, it's so amazing. And two, you just mentioned the volunteers. You have these postcard parties and they look like
Yes.
so much fun. So cool. No, that's so awesome. So that all kind of spurred from that book, Purpose Doesn't Pause. And now you've written another book.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this book and really just kind of what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, so this book is called Now Over Next, and originally I knew after writing Purpose Doesn't Pause that I'd had another book deal coming up, but it was really up in the air of what the book was going to be about. So during this time, just for context, I'd been working for Walmart. Remy, my daughter, had been born. She was about a year old, and I'd been working for YouVersion, the Bible app. So during maternity leave, I switched from Walmart to YouVersion. And at first, Meg, I was traveling back and forth from Bentonville to Oklahoma City weekly because I was working remotely for the Bible app. And during this time, I would, crank up my worship music. I was leaving at like 5 a.m. I would get my large 7 brew coffee, and which did start in Arkansas, but now is like nationwide. So probably a lot of your audience knows what I'm talking about. And I would get this huge coffee, and I just spend time praying over this book because I really was kind of at a loss on what it should be written about. So at first I was like, I'm going to write about fear, like just fear of doing the thing. And Meg, the more I prayed about it, and mind you, I'm still working for YouVersion. I had no idea I was going to become a stay-at-home mom anytime soon. But during this time, as I was praying, I really felt like the Lord just pressed His Spirit upon me and just kind of gently nudged me to say, Hope, it really should be about like the fear of missing out. The problem isn't going for the thing. The problem is going for everything or going for the wrong things and really not prioritizing what matters in this season. And so, long story short, I started rewriting the book from the perspective of the fear of missing out. My original title idea was The Present is the Present. David C. Cook came up with Now or Next, which is like beautifully captures it all, the way that I think is like perfect and catchy.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was this whole idea of just the present moment. Well, lo and behold, you know how the Lord works. I had kind of, as I'm writing this book, felt this nudge to stay at home with Remy. But from a like financial Excel, my husband is like all financially savvy. He's doing the Excel sheet and he's like, Hope, we're going to be like negative $200 a month. Like there's no way we can like lose your salary. And that was even with cutting daycare, like everything. It was like really cutting back. And I really just prayed to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, if this nudge is truly from you, like you're going to have to do it in your way. Like, because this is going to be really hard to just step away. Like, it doesn't even seem wise to do this right now. Like, we're going to be negative. That is not smart. So anyways, month passes by. Like, it was very quick. The Lord, when He's ready and in His timing, you cannot stop what He's going to do. And in the way He's going to do it, my in-laws were going to start a daycare franchise. It was the same daycare franchise that Remy was in. So the owners of her specific daycare found out about this business endeavor and the potential of this happening. And they, obviously they're smart enough not to put things in writing. But unfortunately, we ended up having to meet them for coffee because it's like, okay, they wanted to talk. Remy goes to school there. We can't just, we've got to talk, right? And they tell us at this coffee meeting, which is actually ironically, I'm just not thinking of this, where I wrote most of Purpose Isn't Pause and Now Over Next.
Wow.
That we no longer had childcare and that they didn't want to take care of Remy anymore. So,
wow. Came
home from that meeting, lots of tears, and I even looked at them, faced, across the table from them and said, I'm going to have to quit my job. I'm going to have to sell my car. We're likely going to have to sell our house. Like, this is the position you're putting us in. And they, stayed true to what they were saying at that conversation. And so, Meg, we came home. I put my brand new dream mom car, a white Yukon, on a Facebook Marketplace. It sold.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember you doing that. Yeah.
Probably saw it. I'm pretty sure, I've gone through this season where I even had someone like, Hope, I see your blenders on Facebook. It's not like we were being manic or anything, but anything we didn't need, we were slowly okay, we're just going to put this up for sale. We don't need it. But anyways, my Yukon sold in 24 hours. I started driving Will's truck, and I'm actually still driving Will's truck today, a year later. And yeah, I just started writing this beautiful story, this beautifully hard story of how the Lord took me, the girl who was once, obsessed with money and climbing the corporate ladder and honestly just success. And I remember 25, looking at our life and man, I have everything I could have ever wanted. I'm 25, this is crazy. And yeah, the Lord has slowly just been kind and given us opportunities to humble ourselves, but also to have freedom in Him. So I'm sitting right now on the floor in my beautiful dream home that we've sold, and just Meg knows, just moved to a home that was over $200,000 cheaper than this home, almost $300,000 cheaper than this home, if that tells you anything, in Arkansas. And yeah, I just have found like less is more with him, and really with God, like you just can't miss out. Like if you're saying yes to what he's calling you to, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it's like I'm really being required to live out this message of now over next, and just saying, okay, Lord, right
Yeah.
now you're asking us to give up our dream home, and you've offered us freedom and find like a lot of financial freedom through this other home and this other opportunity, and just trusting that what he's doing now is making space for what is next. And in a way that, I mean, our human brains, we just can't even comprehend what he is going to do in our lives. And so I like rest in expectancy for what is next, but fully am embracing the present moment of my life now. I'm a stay-at-home mom. You know, I'm focused on Remy, and that's and growing this other human inside my belly, and that is my focus. Like that's what he's called me to. And as soon as I start looking left and right at what other people are doing, I just have to gently remind myself, like, he wouldn't give me worse than someone else. Like he gives all of us, each of us, his best if we allow him to and accept that gift today. And yeah, so Meg, that's like just my life in a nutshell these last like what year.
I love, especially at the end, just you talking about like how if we do look to the left and to the right, we are gonna actually grow in discontentment.
Yeah.
And you know, even not see maybe what the Lord has set right before us, which is what you were talking about. Like right now before you, you have Remy, you have this baby inside of you, and, you know, you're called to be a stay-at-home mom. You're also called to be the leader of this ministry, but like these are the things right in front of you. Totally different than what last year, even 2 years ago, looked like. Um, but it can be intimidating to see other people around you maybe
Oh,
having things that
absolutely.
you thought, oh, that's what I thought that I was going to do. But the Lord seems to be pivoting me in this direction. So, what would you say, you know, and you were kind of, you know, talking about it in all of that, but what would you say to the girl who feels like, okay, I do feel like the Lord's calling me to this, but I do have the fear of missing out. And it, you know, it seems silly because we can all say FOMO, like, you know, the little like lingo,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is so real for all of us. I do have the fear of missing out from what I thought my life looked like, was going to look like, from what somebody else's life looks like. What would you say? How do we conquer that fear of missing out?
Yeah, no, I think it's so good because the amount of FOMO that I have had, like, I mean, I used to joke about it, and I think a lot of us are like, oh, she's got FOMO, you know, it's like kind of funny. But like, there's really nothing funny about that. Like, that is such
Yeah,
a hard thing to wrestle with. And I think so often we wrestle with it in silence, or maybe wrestle with it from a like a perspective that we don't even realize we have it. You know what I mean? And so, like,
totally.
as I was doing research on this, Meg, it is crazy. Like, the amount of ways it impacts us. It impacts us mentally, physically, and even from a financial perspective. It was talking about like even spending money on something you really shouldn't spend money on just because you want to fit in. But I think for me specifically, like the Lord has removed me from the places he's had me before, but I'm still in the same location. So for me, sometimes that is really hard, and I'll just speak from that lens to give the advice to the girl. And like what I've been doing from a practical perspective is, you know, I'm driving around here in my cousin's truck. I see people in all their nice cars. Most people here work for Walmart still, you know, which is where I once was. And I feel like I wrestle with it sometimes because being a stay-at-home mom like doesn't necessarily come naturally to me. I felt that desire in my heart, but I truly believe it was like a God-placed desire. It wasn't like a natural desire, if that makes sense.
Totally.
And you know, I'm sitting in this place where there's days where I'm like driving around and I just see like people are at lunch, like having an actual conversation, or they're on a business call, like with the my definition of, you know, being productive. And I'm sitting here like wrestling with a toddler who's having a tantrum because maybe I didn't give her the thing she wanted, or I gave her one thing and she actually wanted the other, you know. And I'm sitting here like, man, this is hard. I feel like I'm missing out, or I feel like my life isn't moving at the pace, or you know, that it could have. And I think my advice in what I do in this moment is I actually think back to this analogy in this like example that I do talk about in the book. But one night I came up to Remy's room because she was crying and I knew she was hungry, but she was like sucking on her passy. So I pick her up out of her crib. It's pitch black. It's probably like 2 a.m. And I'd had like a warm bottle heated like for her. And as I took her passy out, she started screaming. Like, I mean, you would have felt like I had just taken away the best thing from her. But what she didn't know is that I had that bottle of formula, in my hand. It was warm and it was something that was actually going to replace something that could never actually fulfill her, never actually, give her the nutrients and the things that she needed in that moment to sustain her. And I think so often when I look around and I feel like, I guess in a sense, like the best thing, like for Remy, it was her pacifier, was taken from her. And I feel like the Lord has taken away something from me. I have to remember that what he has for me is lasting. And there's always something that maybe you don't see. And I haven't seen like, I think there's the prosperity gospel, right? And it's like you follow Jesus and you get the fame, you get the riches, you get all these things. And Jesus is just teaching me that like, that's not actually what you get when you follow him. You get him, which you can't even describe. Like you get the fruits from him. You get the unseen things from him. You don't get necessarily more. Obviously, we get more than we could ever deserve. We're getting like our Easter was yesterday, right? Like we're getting to spend eternity with him. That's more than we could ever bargain for, ever ask for, ever work for. But, he gives us enough and he gives us the best thing. And I've had to trust that in so many ways. Even, I'll give another example, like with my nonprofit. When I first started fundraising this year, I was like, we need $50,000. That money did not come, Meg. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we going to survive? And so I went back through the spreadsheets and I like actually trimmed down things, cut down things. And I'm like, okay, really all we need is $6,500. I went from thinking 50 because that was what I wanted. That's what I like wanted to do. But when I really cut it down, it was like $6,500. And that was met immediately by a friend of mine that I went to Pepperdine with. Her parents like believe in this and gifted that. And so I guess I'm just sharing like, don't expect to follow Jesus and it be super easy or get a whole bunch of things like worldly things, but do expect to be walking in freedom. Do expect to be experiencing peace that you just can't even explain to, like I can't even explain it to Meg, who's one of my best friends, like how I feel now and the difference of my life now. And so anyways, that's my advice. Like, and I would just say, if the Lord is calling you to it, like I'm sitting in my beautiful old home right now and this house is way nicer than the house that like I live in today. And anyways, it's just like, man, but the Lord wouldn't call me to that place if there wasn't so much more that he had in store. And there wasn't so much room that he was like, making and pruning in my life for something else, something better. And I have to trust that he has something just like me as Remy's mom had something so much better for her than a passy. He has something so much better for me than my corporate career and a 6-figure income or a brand new shiny Yukon. Like he has his best for me, and that I want that above all else. And I have to trust that. You can't always see it, but you just got to trust that it's there behind his back and he's holding you and, just ready to give it to you.
That's so good. I love that like picture that you have with Remy of just the pacifier and versus the bottle. I think that's so beautiful. And it's such a good visual for ourselves to think like, okay, if there are things that the Lord is changing in my life, he's taking from my life, even if I thought those things were the best things, maybe it's a job, maybe it's a boyfriend, maybe it's a, like you even said, like your house, like the different things that we have in our lives, if he's taking those away, then he does have something better. But I also love how you caveated with, that doesn't mean that following Jesus, we get everything that we want. Prosperity gospel is not it. But what we do get is Jesus. We get to be more transformed by him. We get to glorify him more, all things for our good. And that's the best possible thing. So I loved everything you said, but especially kind of just differentiating, just because we do step out into his ways doesn't mean everything is going to go exactly how we hope in that path either necessarily. Absolutely. But it is the better thing. It is the, in this example, the more nourishing, feeding, beneficial thing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more because I don't want someone listening to feel like, man, what am I doing wrong because it's not all falling into place. I would actually say the more I follow Jesus, the more my life feels a little bit like a roller coaster. But it's so cool because the roller coaster is like me being expectant that like, hey, after this like deep low point that makes my stomach feel a little queasy, he's gonna take me to places and lead me to connections or just pruning me a fruit, provide for me a fruit through the pruning that it's just not possible like without him. And so anyways, I'm really excited for the people listening that maybe are on that journey right now or are ready to take that first step or maybe listening today and like, okay, I'm gonna do it. If Hope can do it, just a normal girl, I can do it. If Meg can do it, I can do it. And so anyways, yeah, I'm cheering you on if you're about to take that step or you're in the middle of taking the step and it's kind of feels a little rocky. Just keep going.
Yeah. And I just going back to what you were talking about before too, I think it really all comes down to, and like you talked about this, but like really just trusting the Lord and who he is and, not having that fear of missing out of what could be or what other people are doing is rooted in, what, I'm going to trust that what God has for me is better because I trust God. And I feel like that's just a huge point of like the thing that we can actually depend on is Jesus. And so wherever he takes us in this life, whatever is going on, we're going to be okay because we have him. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So do you have like a last encouragement for this girl who maybe is looking to the future or to the left or to the right or, to the past of her life and saying these things seem shinier, but I know that I need to be walking where God is pointing me and where he has me. Do you have an encouragement? Yeah, for that girl, a last encouragement.
Oh my goodness,
you've already shared so much too, but
no, it's so good. I mean, I think too, Meg, I look back at my life and I don't really feel like I was living. I mean, I was definitely living. Like I was awake way more than I am now, just like striving after the thing, climbing and climbing. But I look back at my life and I'm just, now that the Lord has placed me in a position where, I am having to slow down. And, Remy's favorite thing to me, even this morning, was we're trying to get out the door for her to get to school so I can, do my podcasting on this one day. And she's like, Mama, sit. And I'm like, Remy, we do not have time, girl. We got to go. Like, we were 15 minutes late to school, but I was like, you know what? That's fine. I still made it on time to all my stuff. But anyways, I guess my encouragement is just for the girl who is so focused on what's next or is catching herself in comparison, which, I mean, I do that often. Like, I catch myself there. And I think it's just acknowledging, for me, it's like, okay, if I'm catching myself in comparison, it's like acknowledging the beauty in that person. Like, I'm clearly struck by that girl or that ministry or that thing because I can see how beautiful God's hand is in their life or in that assignment they have. And so I think that's what I really try to do with comparison. And also just pray like, Lord, I really obviously admire or really value this in this person. Like, make me more like that, Lord, because it's like ultimately me acknowledging that I see Jesus in them or something in them. But I think the other thing with striving is just I've learned that when I really slow down and I steward the now well, it sets me up so much better for the next. And Meg, I would say before, I look back at my career, especially at Walmart, and I promoted and promoted super fast. Like, I started out there, I think I was like a 22-year-old. It was like my second job out of school. I had not even been out of school a year. And I was like leading people. And then within 6 months, I was already being promoted and leading more people. And then within like another 8 months, I was promoted again. And I was traveling to India and China and doing all these fancy things. And I've kind of figured out the game, you could say, of like how to be promoted. You please the people, you commit to these big things, you know how to talk, like you connect. I knew what it would take to get to the next level. But I was so focused on the next that I really wasn't stewarding the situations that I was being dealt or, really leaning into how I could develop as a leader or how I could develop in the role or learning even the department I was in. I was just like, I had this one job towards the end of my career at Walmart where I was over a team and I was set to like, I was supposed to automate their job but promote them into new roles. So it was kind of like, and then basically work myself out of a job and go on to the next. So I did that in record speed. Well, what I hadn't slowed down and taken the opportunity to do was really understand finance, which was the department that I had found myself in leading this team. So then my next job happened to be in a finance role. And Meg, I wasn't ready. I didn't know anything. I had just focused on getting to the next and I haven't even shared this before, but it's like, I didn't even really understand the basics of finance. Like I remember my new boss being like, thinking, okay, you're a senior manager too in technology finance. Surely you understand like basic finance, and her having to explain like a profit and loss statement to me for the company. And I'm working for the largest company in the world and I'm in this finance role and I literally didn't even take the time to slow down. So I would just say, I guess my advice in that, whether it's your career or even being a mom, is just like, if God had, like wherever God has your feet today, like wherever you're listening, if you're on your way to work or you're in the bathtub right now after a long day and your kids, you've had a hard mom day, or you're in college or you're a high school student, I know you've got such a large, wide, group of women listening today. I would just say like wherever God has you in your everyday life, like you're eating, you're sleeping, you're drinking life, like just where you're doing your ordinary life, like there is something he's doing now that is going to lead you to what's next. And if you try to bypass or speed past what he's doing now, you're honestly going to miss what he's doing next, because you're missing out on some of the key elements. Like I think now I'm like, Lord, just prepare me, and I'm more leery to be promoted. I'm like, Lord, just like, I want to be ready before I go there, just because I've seen, just as a human, we're going to fail if we do not let, like the Lord really prepare us where we are now, because he knows the best preparation. And I mean, you can tell your story, and it's like only God could have led you from X to Y to Z, and same for me and same for our listeners. Like we can't prepare for the way the Lord crafts ways and paves ways for us to walk. And so just say, if the preparation doesn't look as fancy or shiny as the girl you're looking at or the ministry you're following, just know that someone else, one, is probably looking at your life thinking the exact same thing you're thinking about their life, but two, like the Lord does not mess up. The Lord does not waste time. Like the Lord is timely. If I learned anything from the postcards, it's like that message was right on time. And you know what? Sometimes I didn't even have the money to send them for like 6 months later, but I'm hearing from the person that received it 6 months after they signed up, like that message couldn't have been more timelier on this postcard. And so I would just say, keep going. There's no way you can even compare your life. Like the Lord loves you so much, and he is so intricate. And I mean, I think about Remy, and it's like, oh my gosh, I love her so much. Like there's nothing I wouldn't do for her best, right? Like I'm not going to feed her a whole bunch of sugar, but like for her to be full and to have the best that I know she needs. Like, gosh, if I feel that way, and I know you feel that way about your little one, like how much more does God feel that way about us? Like he literally looked at the world and was like, she needs to be here, right now, in this place. Like only you can do what he set you out to do right now, and only you can do what he set you out to do next. So if you just focus on the now, the next will come.
I think that's so good. It kind of reminds me, just wrapping up, of the story of Joseph, and how, he has a story where he's sold into slavery. And I think we've talked about this before too, but, and then, he's working for somebody in Egypt, but then he gets thrown into prison. And then eventually he gets out of prison. He becomes Pharaoh's right-hand man. And then there's a whole famine that happens, and his family comes to him. Right. They don't recognize him. He's totally transformed, asking for food. And there's this whole moment of, he's seeing his family who's betrayed him, but like forgiveness, and there's this whole process. But you think about this whole journey and how, let's say they had come years earlier, he never went to prison. Who knows, like what the Lord brought him through in that process to actually forgive them and have this whole story that then, completely continued the trajectory of the people of Israel. Like,
It's
if the Lord
crazy.
had never put him through
Yeah.
this long time of waiting, maybe that forgiveness would have not happened. And we see with Moses too, there's so much periods of waiting. And I remember my friend once talking about how the Lord, works on people for so long and then he raises them up and the world wonders, oh, this person just popped out of nowhere. Like, where did they come from? But really, the Lord's been working on them. And if we are kind of just itching our way out of that waiting season or out of whatever that now looks like for us, then I agree we might even miss the next or, just not appreciate the next or whatever it is. But
Right. Yeah.
the now and just being present in it is so important. So I love everything you shared. Before I let you go, can you tell people where they can get this book, where they can find you, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did learn recently that Now Over Next is in a lot of Barnes and Nobles.
Oh,
So check it out there if you want to like get a in-store experience. But if you're looking for Purposes and Pause, Now Over Next, anything else, Amazon's great. You can just search even just Hope Reagan Harris and they should all pop up. And then Instagram's the same, Hope Reagan Harris. And then there's a link in my Instagram bio where you can sign up for a free postcard. They're literally free. There's no strings attached. I've had so many people like, is this a scam? I'm like, no, like this is just, but it's like, that's the gospel, right? It feels so good.
so
You're
good.
like, wait, what? I don't have to work for this? Like, anyways, so yes, sign up for a free postcard. The community of women that rising up and locking arms with me would love to encourage you. And Meg, thank you so much. I love you so much. I love SLP and just so expectant for what God's doing right now in your life through motherhood and through your ministry and what He's got coming next.
You are so awesome, Hope. Thank you for being on the podcast and just for all of this encouragement. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you for listening to the She Lives Purposely podcast. And yeah, I hope that you were so encouraged by this conversation. I know that I was, and honestly, I know that you were too. But live purposefully and live for Jesus. I'll see ya.